want to talk about things I have recognized in myself related to abandonment issues, neglect, that can go in a spectrum of, the slightest recognition of that to the extreme, which I don't need to mention because I don't want to be a video for re-triggering anyone, but I want to be an awareness video for you to be able to maybe pick up those behaviors in yourself, to be able to realize, could that be from a feeling of abandonment, left out, or neglect? Because those three, they kind of like interlink. It's never just purely one, it's a combination of the three. And that will be coming from very young age, your childhood. How we deal with these situations, whether it's happening to us or whether it's happening to people we love around us and we can't do anything about it, is very disturbing for a child. And it could be a simple lack of attention that could give an effect on a child the same as an extreme case of neglect. And it can, because a child sees everything and feel everything with so much unconditional love. The level of sensitivity for a child is immense. So when things aren't matching their unconditional love, there's a massive gap or massive discrepancy, the effect on that child can be quite great, regardless whether it's a minimal thing or a massive thing. The child does not have many resources of the conscious mind to be able to think through the situation. If they're coming from unconditional love and the situation, when I say situation, I'm talking about whether this is happening to the child or whether this is happening around the child, and I'm going to generalize because the effect is very similar. So if the situation is out of balance from that unconditional love, the child is going to try to breach into the situation to close that gap. But it doesn't do consciously, it doesn't do with a thinking mind. It does with reaching out with the heart, giving themselves more, allowing themselves to be there, not removing themselves from that situation. But when that keeps happening and the hurt keeps triggering the heart, eventually the child will shut the heart, but it won't remove itself. It won't remove themselves from the situation. Will still be there, because usually that situation comes within a family nucleus where there's trust and where there is love, conditional love, but there's love. So a simple thing like seeing chaos in a household and not being able to help, or something happening to you and you're not being able to reach out for help, can be detrimental to a child. So feelings of abandonment, feelings of left out, feelings of neglect, And that can be physical, emotional, mental. Let's say there's a situation where there is chaos of parents arguing all the time. Sometimes the emotional needs of that child is not seen or met because of what's going on. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it's been done on purpose. It just means that it's just not being seen because there is so much density and chaos going on that it struggles to see beyond that. So then the child is left having to deal with these emotions on their own. You can also talk about if something's happening directly to the child, like abuse or neglect, and that child doesn't have anywhere to run to be able to cope, to understand. With a thinking mind, it will be only working with the energies that they feel inside. So blocking the heart, stopping the heart from emanating that unconditional love. And we can grow up using this coping mechanism in our heart, in our body. And as we start to understand words for emotions, as we start to understand the consequences of those emotions, we then start to create coping mechanisms that are more from the thinking mind, okay? And they become a natural state that we use for all the way through adulthood, not realizing. So little behaviors, perceptions, understanding how we understand the situation comes from that coping mechanism. So things that I used to do that was playing out as feeling abandoned, but even though I didn't know it was that was playing out. If there's an argument, I couldn't cope with the argument. It would make me cry and I would walk away. If I had to have a heated discussion with someone, I would be having a heated discussion but walking away. If I get frustrated for not being heard, I would get frustrated to the point where I need to walk away. When you get in your car and you drive away, when you shut the door, when you turn around when someone's speaking, it's because it hit that point where, as a child, you felt neglected, emotionally neglected, even or abused, and you couldn't stop it, and abandoned or left out or taken away. Sometimes a child can be taken away from their home to another home for whatever reason. So we find ourselves moving away from situations that we cannot cope. And if you find yourself doing that, turning around when someone's speaking, looking down, walking away, exiting the situation as quick as you can, there's that fight and flight mode that we struggle to deal with, but it's triggering these abandonments, neglect. We're self-removing because that's what happened then, right? We were not attended to. So when you don't feel listened, when you don't feel heard, when you don't feel supported, that frustration comes up. And the word never, abandonment it's not going to come up like that. The word neglect is not going to come up like that because as a child, those words didn't exist. It was only the emotions. But as we grow up and we already have a coping mechanism in place for those moments, nobody's going to come to and say, right, this is what you're going through, this is neglect. And then therefore, every time you feel it, it's neglect. If you knew, you would be working on it to let go, release, so you don't carry that with you. So that's why we don't consciously know that this is what we're going through. We know we're going through something. We know we're going through a very uncomfortable feeling in our bodies. Could be in your heart, could be in your belly. Yeah, it could be in your head, could be in your shoulders, could be on your back. But we just don't know how to put words to it. But we know we are in a fight and flight mode. And if we don't know how to recognize in words, because it happened very, very young age. It has happened at very, very young age. So if you find yourself having these behaviors where, you are in groups and you remove yourself from groups, these are all behaviors. I've done it, and every so often I find myself doing it, but now I know it comes from this same trauma bond of feeling abandoned, feeling neglected. I go back to it and I work through it. I have the tools, the spiritual tools, the energetic tools, the subconscious tools to work, and I go to people that can help me as well. So I can work through it. I used to be afraid to work through it. I'm not afraid to work through it anymore, but I can recognize those little behaviors. It doesn't happen as often, and then I have been back to situations where it has shown to me that I have worked through because I didn't feel the fight and fly. I didn't feel the stress in my body. I didn't feel the discomfort anymore. So I know I have released quite a lot of it. But we have to also understand that things aren't released all at once. It can be too much to the thinking mind. So things can be released in layers, and in layers that we come to understand, so we can then integrate the change. So when I find myself in that situation, I can integrate a different way of being, a being that doesn't come from that feeling of abandonment, neglect, and being left, being taken away, being not heard and not seen. And don't ever underestimate the trauma that a child has gone through, whether it looks extreme or it looks light, and how they are behaving, because it doesn't apply to in that way. Yeah. Besides how we interpret things as a child, we also carry familiar traits, behaviors that we learn from watching our parents and our family, and ancestral imprints that we carry. And between your siblings, for example, some will carry more than others. So don't ever calculate, because it doesn't work as a linear thing. Just because you went through a lot of trauma, therefore you should be more traumatized, or because you went through little traumas that you shouldn't be that much traumatized. It doesn't work that way. But when you going through all of this, I know as a child you are somewhat helpless, and you can only rely on how you interpret things emotionally and energetically, because the thinking mind isn't as it is compared to an adult. So as you're going through experiences, there's a lot that's probably out of your control, but it doesn't mean that we are blaming and shaming everyone around us. It's not that. But we also contribute to a bit of that, because there is a certain level of allowance that we allow ourselves to continue to work through, not to work through, but to go through these situations. And it's not because we are allowing in a way that we are even doing it consciously. This allowing to happen comes from, again, another self-worth issue that perhaps has been developed even at the womb, infant level, and so you can't blame something like that. You can't blame yourself. Okay. So when you're looking at these issues, either therapeutically or energetically through energy healing, you need to look at it from a point of, we all play a part. We all play a part. There will be mirror effect, even between an infant and an adult. There will be a mirror effect, a reflection of each other in there. And that reflection, one will trigger the other. And like I said, we are triggering this ancestral baggage that we carry energetically in our blueprint, in our DNA. And as we do, and as we are triggered, we are then co-creating. We are co-creating a situation. Yeah. And I think the only people really we need to forgive is ourselves, but not out of guilt, not out of guilt, not out of a self-blame or self-shame, but out of love, out of unconditional love. Because we can forgive the version of that child version that didn't understand the thinking mind, that didn't understand the situation through a conscious perception of the mind, that could only rely on the energetic feelings that they were getting, the emotions that they were getting, not understanding what they were, and how to go about. Because what we do as a child, like I said, we're always trying to close that gap between two people, between ourselves and our caretakers. We're always trying to close that gap into unconditional love. And when we can, eventually we have to shut it. We have to shut it. And as an adult, then you're trying to open again. You're trying to open your heart. You're trying to be less serious. You're trying to be more joyful. You're trying to be more happy. You're trying to be more smiley. You're trying to be more positive. You're trying to be more cheerful. You're trying to be more excited. You're trying to bring joy into your life and feel it more like you used to at some point in your childhood. And all that gets shut down. And in my case, I remember amazing things from my childhood, but after a while I stopped smiling as much. I stopped having joy as much. And now it's a way of going back and relearning and teaching myself how to feel that emotion through. So it comes out organically, naturally. And everyone will have their process, how to bring that up again, how to open the heart. And, you know, I don't like the word reliving these situations, but I like the word reviewing with a different eye perspective, with a different sight, with a different mindset. Because if we review from a point of feeling injustice, feeling victim to the situation, if we review from a point of feeling injustice, unfair, we will relive it. But if we review from a point of unconditional love that you once were as a child, when you first started to try to close that gap, you will be able to see in such a different way that it won't hurt you, that it won't cause a re-triggering or re-trauma. It will cause a liberation of that situation. Of course, the memory will still be there, but the memory won't trigger all the emotions that have been triggering you all this time, every time you get into a situation that makes you feel that way, and therefore you act a certain way. So it's really picking out those behaviors if it's something that perhaps you're not aware of, abandonment or neglect or anything like that from an infant point of view, because you won't have a memory, but you might be carrying something from that period of time. And it will play out in our day-to-day way of being. And it can play out like this. You know, you had enough, get in a car and you drive. You shut the door, you walk away. You can't cope with that. You move houses. You move places all the time. You change jobs all the time. You're removing yourself from something all the time. You decide, you're invited to go out, and then on the last minute you say, I'm not going. You just don't feel like going. You're removing yourself from that opportunity of joy. Yeah. So we replicate this every moment that comes to trigger that emotion. We replicate what we've been through. And if you are in that repeating cycle of doing these things, there's something to be looked at. But it's being able to be looked at, being guided, being supported, so that you look with a higher mind perspective, not a mind that you were when you actually went through it, because obviously it caused you to react and build coping mechanisms that limited you. So in those situations, you are limited because you can't keep going, you can't go forward, you can't make it different or easier or better. It just happens the same way every time. So that's a limited outcome. And it comes from a limiting belief, a belief that perhaps you were neglected, not heard, not seen, abandoned, left out. And like I said, you might not know as these words, but you might feel something. You just don't know how to put into words because it might have happened when you were very young. And when you're very young, you didn't know these words. A child can't put words to emotions until, accurately really, until they're about 8. So if it happened before that, you're just going on sensations in your body. Sensations in your body. So that sensation of frustration, that sensation of injustice, that sensation of not feeling heard, that sensation in your body of, feeling not supported, not listened to, not loved. It's all a sensation in your body, and I come here to bring you the awareness to feel those sensations, to make note and a mind note of what those sensations are when they come up in those moments that they're repeating cycles. And maybe instead of shutting the door, walk away, go for a drive, remove yourself from the situation, move house, move job, close the friends group or exit the friends group, I want you to breathe. Close your eyes and breathe with it. And allow yourself to feel the sensation. I feel it in my tummy right now. And you just breathe and focus on that sensation, but focus not as stopping the sensation from being there, but breathing as allowing that sensation to be there in your body. And acknowledge that you're feeling that sensation. You don't need to put a name to it. And if you felt somewhat re-triggered in this video, this is what you need to do right now. Allow the breath to come in through your heart into the point of where the sensation is, and then out from your heart this way. And you feel, and you feel, and it eases. And that right now is settled for me. That sensation I was feeling just from talking about it is settled for me. And like I said, I recognize those moments now through this feeling in my body, through this sensation in my body. And I stop putting names and labels to it. I just feel it now. And I do go to people I know to do energy work to try to work through further deeper, for a deeper understanding and releasing. And this is what I offer. These tools I offer in my free meditation group. So I'll put the link below. My book as well talks about all these moments that we go through. And it's not necessarily about recognizing this and labeling. It's more about picking up the moments and the sensations where they are in your body, becoming aware, and finding use the tools that I give to work through them yourself for self-healing, because you can do this. And of course, there are moments you're going to need help, assistance, maybe to go deeper, because the subconscious will hold things we don't even know it's there. And that's why we act in certain ways that we don't know why we do it, because it's hidden in the subconscious. But the more you learn to open the subconscious to get things out, the easier it gets. The subconscious actually just gives it to you eventually. When you start asking questions, the subconscious will give it to you. So this is my book. It's not a book to read cover to cover. It's a book to literally go like that and open. The chapters are about 2-minute long reads, and they are mind-opening. There's a lot of questions through it, which then will trigger your mind to think, or trigger your mind to work through the subconscious and give you tools. Through the free meditation group, I also work in offering regular meditations for release. And there is the support in there, the communication, the sharing, and the love and support. I will be doing a release meditation for these issues that I mentioned in this video, like abandonment, neglect, because I want to bring this introduction as an awareness for you to be able to take a few days to go through your day-to-day and your situations and see, how do I react to those situations? Is it the same every time? Is that sense of removing yourself from that situation because it's too much to cope? If you are removing yourself, shutting the door, walking away, turning around, taking the car for a drive, wanting to change jobs, wanting to leave your place of, move out of where you are, even wanting people to go away, it's a form of removing yourself from that situation. Even wanting, as I'm going to say something, because sometimes things can get so hard for a child. Thoughts can get, I think when you get to this point, you've had enough. You either want you to be removed, so you want to die and everything ends, or you want other people to die and everything ends. But the feeling of guilt just for thinking that comes through is a killer. And then we realize how guilty we feel for thinking that. Either way, whether us remove ourselves or remove other people in that extreme, is because the heart has tried to close that bridge and you couldn't, and it's shut and there's nothing more there. And then we build mechanism from there. That's depression, that's negative thoughts, lack of self-worth, confidence, everything. These are bonds that glue to one problem and become massive problems. So I will be doing a guided release meditation for these type of issues, and I would love you to join. It won't be live, it will be private. So I ask you, if you want to be part of it, to join my meditation group. We do lots of meditations. I do energy report for the day, so we can make the most of the energies that are coming through the day, so we can utilize that for ourselves, so we can make things a bit easier through the day. And then, I'm always there for support, answering questions, anything that you're going through that you find, everything can be done through energy. So if you believe that everything can be done through energy, that's the place to be. So I'll send you love and light, and I hope to see you in the group.